Right on, guys. I was going to do this video a little while ago. I put it off, got interrupted, put it off. If my mum, my sisters, cousins, close friends, people that know me are watching this video, it's going to be very clear in the title what this video is about. If you feel it's too much information based on your relationship to me, don't watch it. If you know my videos so far, they are no hold barred, nothing spared. It's why I do the help videos, really, because I don't see the point in holding back on nothing. So this video today is going to be for living with being well endowed and having your urological problems being well endowed. This is not having urological problems because you are well endowed. So, yes, put it straight to the point. I am well endowed. I have a big cock, a big dick. It's about the straightest way to say it, really. I fall into much way above average. I'm not up there with Sugar, but I am packing enough. So we'll talk about what is classed as average. The latest polls for male size when erect across the world, regardless of skin color, race, ethnicity, where you come from in the world, whether you grew up next to a nuclear reactor. That's a joke, by the way. The average male penis when it's erect is between 4 to 6 inches. So if you fall into this category, you are within average, comfortably within average. This is about 90% of the male population. Again, on the same figures of average, most have about 3.5 inches when limp and about 4.5 inches in girth when erect. So we come down to the 10%. Again, based on fairly recent studies, 5% a male population will fall into under 4 inches. So these are what are classed as micro penises when erect, and obviously they're fully functional. Anyone watching this with a micro penis, you have my deepest sympathies. Couldn't think of nothing worse. Then we come to the last 5%, which are those of us, including myself, which fall into over average, basically, which is 6 inches plus, basically, in length and over 4.5 inches in girth. I'm not going to go into depth how big I am in inches, but yeah, put it this way: there's plenty going on. There's obviously been a couple of documentaries made. I think it was World Biggest Penis, which I think was Channel 4. They've made another one recently. Again, sort of portrayed how blokes struggle, especially if you are very large when limp. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really realise I was that big until I started seeing my first proper girlfriend. And she was 26, I was 18 or 19. She'd been with quite a few blokes. She lost her virginity at 13. And she remarked that she'd never seen anyone as big as me. And I thought, that's a bit of an ego boost, like, no. And then when I got with my wife, again, she'd had a few relationships, quite a few boyfriends. And again, she remarked the same. So, no, to having two people tell me they'd never seen anyone as big as me, you think, well, that puts me in quite a unique category, really, in terms of size. And if you're thinking, oh, he must be brilliant to have a big cock, well, put it this way: I've been biologically compensated for being short. At 5'3", it was always a bugbear at school. All the lads were 5'7", 5'10", 6 foot plus, and I was stuck there at 5'3". Oh, I got a heavy build, a lot of muscle. But yeah, if I sort of knew now what I knew then, you think, actually, I'm not that worried about being short. And my wife certainly doesn't have nothing to complain about. There's times she'd like me to be taller, but I don't think she'd trade one or for the other now. So yeah, so you're out there reading this, watching this video, either just out of interest because you're well endowed. We'll get to the complicated bits but later on in the video. You think, oh, it must be brilliant. Well, with big cock comes big responsibility. End of the day, you've got something now that is going to cause a lot of damage if you don't handle it correctly, either to a male partner or female partner, depending on your sexual orientation. You can't be driven by ego. You have to still be a very considerate lover. I know there are size queens out there, and there are probably size queens out there that really no matter how big you are, it's not going to be big enough. But they are going to be very few and far between. The majority of women are quite happy with average size members at the end of the day. Several threads online. People have had experiences with big members, and they're like never again hurt. Couldn't walk for days afterwards. So you have to be very careful, guys, if you are packing a lot, because like I said, you can do an awful lot of damage. In the early days, my wife suffered with endometriosis. She had quite a lot of cyst on her ovary. In certain positions, it would cause a lot of pain. I had to be very gentle, go very shallow. When she had her hysterectomy, sort of opened the floodgates a little bit, really, because once she's all warmed up, you can sort of go as deep as you want to, really, to within tolerances, obviously. Underwear has always been a bit of a pain. I went from wearing boxer trunks to boxer shorts. But at the same time, I started seeing my wife, mainly because I felt they were more comfortable. Some people like more support. I'm well over average in terms of limp size. I'm not, wouldn't class myself as a shower, but I'm sort of somewhere in between. I'm a shower and a grower. So I got enough to look impressive when it's limp, and certainly enough to look impressive when it's hard. Um, I tend to wear a size bigger in terms of my boxer shorts, jeans. They tend to fit how they fit. And the day, because I can know everything's fine until you get hard on, and trying to hide that is not easy. I tend to try and sort of tuck it up underneath my belt, to keep it out the way. Either that, you've got to tuck it down your leg, and then it's fairly obvious. Which, depending on your situation, it's not always appropriate. Some of the guys featured on their documentary, I think one guy was 9 inches long limp, and there was nothing he could do to hide that. And he struggled to get jobs because people thought he was being inappropriate, and I think it was taking that much blood. He always needed a second heart to run the bloody thing. So there are limits to being over big. Once you get above 8 or 9 inches, especially you get large amounts in girth, you're never going to pump enough blood to it to get it proper hard. So I suppose I'm at the limit where I class what I got is a practical. It's not super massive. No, it's not horse size. It's not enough that you're going to make women run away in fear. I'm not saying some would. The first girlfriend I had, after a few hand jobs and try giving me a blow job, she decided that no way she was going to climb on top of what I had, and the late relationship very quickly fizzled out. So don't expect every woman's going to embrace you in open arms. My wife settled into it reasonably quickly, and I said, because I am a very considerate lover. Um, yeah, it took a little while to get used to it. Blowjobs she struggles with because of the girth. I always joke she got a mouth like a snake, but um, it's all tongue in cheek, literally. We sort of try not to make too much of it. It's a funny thing, really, in terms of penis size. No, women won't. We talk about the boobs. They're too big. They're too small. They're not. They're sagging too much. They're not the same size. It gets talked about readily, sort of thing. Women can go and have augmentations, boob lifts, boob reductions, boob increases, and it's just generally very talked about. Um, and it's all quite obvious looking at women when they got small tits, big tits, tits in between. When it comes to blokes, it just it just doesn't get talked about. Really, I don't tend to go down the route of really sort of bragging that I'm well hung, mainly because majority of men out there who may think they're already, you know, small, probably fall well within the average range. Like I said, the average range is 4 to 6 inches. You fell within that, you're average across the world. All this notion that black men have bigger penises or white men have bigger penises is there's very little to support that. There's going to be top ends in all races. I think the white and the black ethnic minorities probably outweigh the larger end compared to Asians. But like I said, there's so little evidence to support one way or the other. You have to go really on the general percentages, really. And the majority of women are quite happy with something 4 to 6 inches anyway. So unless you're unlucky enough to be landed with a size queen, then yeah, you haven't got too much to worry about. Most women prefer girth over length anyway. So you're better off with something shorter and fatter than younger and thinner at the end of the day. It's no good having a pencil dick because all you're going to do is poke fuck out of her cervix and not really provide a lot of pleasure. yeah, so that's sort of, the aspects of living with being well endowed. When I was younger, it was always awkward. Christmas time, I'd have to come down in jeans or dressing gown or something like that because I had two younger sisters, and even sort of back in my teens, I was already bigger. By the time I was 14, I was already bigger than most average males are as an adult. That will sort of give you some kind of perspective as to where I was to at 14. I was probably twice the size of most of the lads around me, and probably bigger than most of the male teachers teaching us. That when I was 14. Um, so you can think, well, how does this affect having neurological problems? Well, unfortunately, the bigger you are, limp, the longer urethra you have. Now, the average male urethra, which I would imagine is based on 3.5 inches of limp penis, is somewhere around about 8 inches between the inside of the bladder sphincter and the tip of the penis. You're looking at about 8 inches average urethra. Some are going to vary a little bit. Obviously, you've got a shorter shaft than that. Limb is going to be shorter. If you're like me, it's going to be quite a bit longer. I have to self cast. You've watched my previous videos. I have end stage IC, and I haven't bladder Botox treatment, which basically crippled my bladder to the point I can't do anything other than catheterize. I can just about pee sitting down, but it's such a strut I just don't bother anymore. And the intermittent catheters, which can be fairly straight across the board, doesn't matter which brand you use, they have a working length of 12.5 inches. Now, on average, when I'm limp, I'm using 11 of these 12.5 inches, and quite often, if I wake up with a partial hard on in the morning, I'm using all of those 12.5 inches. If you're running a big no, if you're running running up to sort of 6, 7, 8 inches limp, you are really gonna. If you get to the point, you either got to self catheterize, or have indwelling catheters sort of thing. I've read cases where even with indwelling catheters, they struggle to reach the bladder because the urethra is so long. So I can just about get away with the intermittent catheters I use. I think the ones with the bags on them have a little bit more working length. You might get maybe 14, 15 inches um, of working length with a catheter. In terms of tests, I think the flexible scopes come with about 8 inches working length. I think the rigid cystoscopy equipment again is somewhere in the region of about 15, 18 working inches, and I think most Foley catheters have about 15 to 16 working inches on them, allowing for obviously the balloon to be inflated in size. So obviously, if you're sort of packing more than 6 inches limb, I hope for your sake you don't have a lot in the way of urological problems like I have or am to have urological tests. Another downside to having a lot of shaft when limp, as I found to my misfortune when I had my flexible cystoscopy, as a rule, for females they tend to inject 6 mils of lidocaine into the urethra. For males, they inject 11 mils of lidocaine instill a gel into the urethra. If I'd known what I know now, I would have asked them to supplement that with a further 6 mil. So, guys, if you're over sort of like 3.5, 4 inches limp and you're going for a flexible cystoscopy urodynamics, I would ask them to make sure they dump a good 16, 17 mils of lidocaine into your shaft, which will make sure it gets all the way down through and up to the bladder sphincter. Like all my videos, I've got the bitheal urethra, so my urethral open is much smaller than the normal male, which doesn't help either. So everything tends to stretch it, be it flexi scopes, rigid scopes. Obviously, urodynamics wasn't too bad because obviously the catheters are very fine. So that's obviously a bit of advice if you're well hung and you're going for a flexible cystoscopy. Obviously, rigid cystoscopies, you're asleep anyway. For males, they never perform the rigid cystoscopies whilst awake. So yeah, he's like I said, at the end of the day, if you're watching this video, you've been well aware what's in the title of this video. You're well aware what I'm going to talk about in this video. If you don't want to know that much about me, then please don't watch it. It's simple as that. If you do watch it, then please act with a bit of discretion. Don't start sort of saying, "Oh, the horse is walking down the road." I don't mind nicknames, but I don't want it sort of blatant to all and sundry that I'm carrying a big package at the end of the day. There's fame and there's sort of infamy, and no, I'd rather not have both at the end of the day. So I hope this video has helped out those. Again, there's not much in the way of these kind of videos on YouTube. I have looked. Again, if there's any guys watching this who are well endowed, if you've got any questions, I'll try and answer them I said like all of us, we're very few and far between, and unless you change in the changing rooms and you know a guy who's well hung from what you can see. No, it's not that something guys talk about at the end of the day. We don't sort of sit there, with a few mates. No, we might. No, I've sort of given implications over the years. We've got friends of ours, and there's sort of been half-hearted jokes, and I think they sort of gather that no, I am packing a lot, but I don't really sort of come out and start saying, "Oh, well, I'm equivalent to this or I'm equivalent to that." I don't care at the end of the day. But that's how things are. Um, yeah. So any questions? Drop us a question in the comments box, and hopefully this might be useful to some of you men out there. Well done, guys. Cheers and bye.